Hey guys, it's John from J&A Farms. We just wanted to give you a quick look at our garden in its current state. We've got everything planted and we've done most of our support system. So we're just going to walk you through what we have so far. So this entire row is roughly 70 foot long. The garden's about 45 feet by 82 feet from fence to fence. This garden is actually going to be where our high tunnel is going to go this next season. We just ran out of time this year and wanted to go ahead and get things in the ground. So this entire row is nothing but cucumbers, and there's two varieties. One is going to be your standard variety and the other is going to be a canning variety that we'll use for pickles. And this is the first year we've done this particular system. We do use cattle panels a lot for our supports and stabilizing, and because we grow things on such a small scale, obviously going vertical versus horizontal is going to give us more room and more product for each plant. So we're actually trying this year to grow these on these cattle panels. As you can see, some of them have already started to grow up and a few of them already have little pickles on them. So again, this is new to us. Just like everything that we do, it's trial and error.
Very excited.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the goal is to be able to keep these up off the ground. So it'll have several benefits to that. Number one, obviously, is the space. So where normally one of these cucumber plants would be, 3 foot radius around with the vine, now we're going up. So we were able to plant them a lot closer. We got more on this row. The other thing it does is it just keeps them off the ground. Anytime anything's on the ground, it's more likely to get insect infestations or disease. We get a lot of yellow leaves just where they would lay on the ground. So we're trying it this way. And then, one of the benefits for us old folks is we don't have to bend over as much, so it'll be on the ground.
Hallelujah.
So again, this is a trial and error. As you can see, just like all the rows, this is all drip irrigated. We drip irrigate because the biggest reason is overhead watering, we tend to get more, like black spot fungus and different issues with the humidity, and plants just really don't prefer to get a lot of overhead watering. So we're gonna, keep you guys posted and see how this works. If it works, we'll continue to do it. If it doesn't, we'll do something different next year.
That's right.
So here's our tomatoes. I'm not even going to go through all the different varieties that we have, but
Roughly 60?
We've got roughly 60, maybe 70 tomato plants on this one. The first couple up here are going to be 2 different varieties of cherry tomatoes. And we've always struggled with
Our farm cat?
we have always struggled with how do we support our tomatoes. And with all the hours that we have done researching our garden setup, I think we probably would agree we've spent more time researching how to support the tomatoes. And when we first started and we had a small hobby garden, we were using tomato cages, and tomato cages work great when you've got 3 or 4 tomatoes. But number one, they're expensive. Number two, they typically take up more space. You can't put them as close together. So then we tried like a string system, and that worked great when it worked, but then one string would break
Quickly became a nightmare,
and they would all just come falling down. So obviously we wanted something a little bit more stable, and our original plan was to take these cattle panels, and we probably would have used the height over here instead of these. I think these are 60 inches and those are like 42s, I think.
Yeah.
And I was actually going to cut these into 4 sections and make basically like a little bit more of my own heavy duty tomato cage. And the more we looked into that, it was just going to be very expensive. Not to mention the time of cutting. We have somewhere between 60 and 70 tomato plants here. So if we needed 4, you're talking close to like 260, 300 pieces. Then we've got to put them together, and then you've got to tear them down. It's just a big mess. And we actually end up using these cattle panels for different things throughout the year. That's one of the reasons we love the cattle panels, is because, as you can see, this one has the old remnants of last year's green beans. And a couple of these kept loose cows from getting out. And so, you know, we didn't really want to destroy all of our cattle panels. We wanted to be able to use them for different things. So we saw this one, and the idea on these is that we can keep them secured to the panel. We have ordered these clips, and they are literally designed to clip around the main leader on the tomatoes and then clip to whatever you're attaching it to. And we are patiently waiting for them to be delivered in the mail. So in the meantime, we are using like a garden twine just to keep them up. And of course, the other mistake we've made with our tomatoes in the past is we just let them grow. We really didn't know any better, and the more research we did, we realized that we needed to keep the lower limbs from touching the ground, so we keep them pruned up.
Notice we've got these
And
pruned.
then this is a good example of one that's been pruned up. Some of these have not been pruned yet.
You have to wait till they get to be a certain height.
And not only does that, you know, keep them off the ground, help to keep them more stable, but there's a lot of suckers on them that do not produce any type of fruit. So obviously, you know, the plant's using up energy that could be put into producing more fruit. So, you know, the research we've done on pruning, if you find 20 different videos, you'll have 20 different opinions on how to do them. So again, this will be a little bit of a trial and error. And of course, we're using the drip on this also. So over here we have our pole beans, just our regular green beans. And this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
So from
This
the
works
get-go,
great.
we use the cattle panels. You know, my dad is probably the definition of you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And since I was a kid, he used this system where him and his helpers would use post hole diggers and set posts and use like a wood framing with pressure treated wood. And then they would run strings at a pattern and let everything grow. And here's the thing, that works great. It works just as good as this. The problem with that old system is number one, my dad is constantly replacing wood, because even though it's pressure treated wood, the way he stores it and the fact that it's directly in the dirt, it just doesn't last like one of these cattle panels would. But the biggest issue for me, and the reason we didn't go with that, was because we can literally set this up, like these whole 16-foot cattle panels, in probably 2 or 3 minutes.
Yep.
And then we take them down, and there's no waste. We just reuse them the next year. With my dad, he's like replacing lumber. He's having to buy new hardware like screws and nails, and then of course the string gets all thrown in the garbage. So, you know, to each their own. And I'm not knocking the old ways. My dad has probably influenced me more with the garden than anybody else. But you know, we're all about efficiency, and this just works out really well. We did try the arches, and the arches are cool in theory. So what we would notice about the arches is they were great, but our green beans from you know, the top part would be, gosh, 18 inches thick. And the problem was, you know, we had them where we could walk in it, and I'm 6 foot, so you know, I'd walk in it to get on top. We would lose a lot of beans, or we'd find beans that had gotten too big and they just weren't good anymore, and they would get trashed. So, you know, in theory, the green bean tunnel is great because it does, it looks cool, and everything's vertical, so it's up off the ground, but it's not 100% practical like this method is here. So, and we planted what we needed this year. This was a new garden, and we really, I think, underestimated the size of this garden. So, you know, when we sat down in the planning stages and decided we want this and we need this many of this, we ended up with a lot of space. So what we did was, we've always been very fortunate here to have really good pollinators. You can kind of see, you know, if you scan through the pasture. So we've got all these pastures out here, and you can barely see it. I don't know if you would be able to see it from this view, but there are small little yellow flowers growing in the pasture. We don't mow these pastures, the animals graze on them, but we don't do weed control or anything. We do seed occasionally, mostly for winter forage, but for the most part we let these pastures just be native grasses and weeds. So we get pollinators from there. But obviously we could use as many pollinators as we can. So this year we started mixing in some wildflowers and different things that we planted. These were the marigolds that we planted, and they're good for pollinators, but they also are a natural
Pest
pest control. So we're trying this.
Trying
This is
some
new.
companion planting.
And then over here, we had put in these black-eyed Susans. It's kind of funny on these. I had to swallow my own words. Amanda was set on buying stuff like black-eyed Susans and wildflowers from seeds. Personally, I'd never had a whole lot of luck with them, but she was set on it.
Look at my little
And,
babies about
these
to
are just a few
bloom.
that we have put up here in the garden to bring in the pollinators. The rest of them she's planted in the yard and in her pots. So I had to swallow my own words on this one because they've done great.
That's
so we're anxious to
right.
see what this does. And then the rest of what you see up here is our peppers. And I know we have banana peppers, bell peppers, and we also have jalapeno peppers. And we did a lot more peppers this year than we ever had before, and we used to buy them by the plant. So this year we decided to do the seed. There's not even really a comparison in pricing when you go from seed to plant. So, you know, most of your garden centers are $4 and $5 for maybe as much as $6 for a 4-inch pot. We have bought more local from like plant sales, from garden clubs, and not only are we supporting that small business, but also we just think they're better quality plants. But what we learned is that out of all the different things that we have started from seed, peppers are the hardest. They're just very slow to grow, and mostly because this particular year we had a very wet, cold spring. So the ground temperatures were staying about 10 degrees less than what they would typically be this time of year. So we just had a really hard time getting them to go where we needed them to be this time of year. So because of that, we actually bought some. These came from
The Home Depot.
probably.
Or Lowe's.
We just needed some for her, mostly to make her pickles with. And
These are my ones from seeds. You can just see
they
they,
kind of see.
compared to everything else that I also grew from seeds, just slower.
Yeah,
That
so-
one, not a seed.
Yeah.
That one, seed.
So that's the reason we bought those. We, again, normally don't buy stuff like this, not only because of the cost, but we prefer to be able to find a local seed supplier. We like the heirloom seeds. We also like seeds that are, there's so many altered stuff this time.
More organic.
So we wanted to get something that was a little bit better. So, and again, everything is drip. I believe one of these drip lines may be dripping now. So we run either 1 or 2 gallon per minute emitters, and we change up how often all this
Now
stuff
that one's
gets
dripping.
ran, just based on how much rain we're having or how warm it is, and then obviously what type of plants we're growing too. And another thing we started using this year that's pretty neat is we started using the micro sprays.
Oh yeah.
These get hooked right into the drip. The things that can take a little bit more water,
And things that need more space.
need more space.
Like my watermelons.
Literally a watermelon for us. This is
Yeah.
not for sale or mass consumptions. Obviously we have like 1 or 2. So on this one we just put a spray. I can adjust this down for a little bit of water or a lot of water. And we're going to give our hand at watermelons. We've actually had really good luck growing watermelons here the last couple of years because we just had the right amount of water and dry temps, kind of a good mixture. So, but it was in the lower garden. I'm going to take you guys down there in a minute. But one of the things we noticed was that particular garden, it didn't dry out as good as this one up here, and water tended to sit where we had them. And we would wait patiently on that watermelon, only for us to have a lot of rain or to sit in the wet ground, and right before it was ripe, they would split, which is just
Heartbreaking.
very, very disappointing. Last year, the deer actually got into them, but surprisingly, they didn't eat the watermelon. They ate the leaves, but they trampled the watermelon. So I think one of our culprits is up there in the pasture. across now.
Probably
Wanting to see what is about ready. So it's just actually very odd that there's one up there. Usually on most evenings about this time of day, there's about 10 of them out there. So
it's our neighbor's land.
yeah. So and then over here we've got these were the garden stakes that we had bought for something, and you know, we don't really need a whole lot of support on the peppers, but we did notice, especially on the bell peppers, because the peppers would get so heavy, they would just fall over. So this was the most inexpensive thing we could find. And what I would do is I would buy the longer stakes, and then I would cut them into sections somewhere between 20 and 24 inches, depending on how we could make them out of the stake. It's a very inexpensive way. We'll wrap some twine or a zip tie around it and keep the peppers up. So one more thing I'm going to show you up here. We're going to take you to the lower garden. This is how we've got our irrigation set up. This one obviously has drip. That's all we run. We might do a little bit of overhead watering, but we try not to do a whole lot, especially once the plant
It's wasteful
and emerges. We go to 100% drip. Now up here we had no electricity, so what we decided to do on this was we had a water line, and we've got two of these. They're from Home Depot. They're very inexpensive. We pay like $35 for one of these. Water stays on all the time, and I think this one has a leak. I'll have to come back and do a little.
They're battery operated, right?
But they're battery operated. I can usually get, I don't know, a couple of months out of the AA batteries, and I change them out. But they're just as effective as our Hunter irrigation system that we have down on the lower garden.
A great option.
We did have to do, there is cows and goats and a couple of horses in this pasture, so they're obviously hungry and curious animals. That's what they spend all their time doing, is grazing. So when they see all this greenery in here, they're very curious, and they'll lean over on this wire fence. So we did run barbed wire across the top, and we thought, hey, we've taken care of the pest problem. But we didn't take in consideration that we are literally ate up with rabbits. I don't know.
This year it's new.
Like if you look up on top of the hill, there is,
I think I can get
3
them.
or 4 up there right now.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere, and we thought it was the coolest thing.
Until
we're all about having a balanced ecosystem, but just stay out of our garden.
Yeah.
So, Amanda and one of her former students spent a whole Sunday going around attaching this wire mesh.
It's hardware cloth is what it is, like you'd put on a chicken coop.
Knock on wood, it has been great to keep the rabbits out, because they were in here every day. They could the fence. So once this was put up, we were able to keep the rabbits out. They did not seem very happy, but we were very happy with it. So, we used barbed wire and this farm fence wire for the bigger.
This was a lot of work, and we did not want to.
We didn't take into consideration the rabbits. So we love rabbits, just don't want them in the garden. So I'm gonna take you guys down to the lower garden now and show you down there and what we've got going on down there. All right, so this is our lower garden, and this was our original garden. When we first moved out here about 4.5, 5 years ago, this was woods. So the fence was here, obviously no gate, and I couldn't have reached my hand this far over without being in just nasty old privet. There was pines and sweet gum trees. So we decided at the time that we needed a garden just to grow some stuff for ourselves, and we cleared till probably just a little, maybe past this gate right here, maybe about 3 posts down. We cleared that, and we brought in some equipment, and we basically created a family garden. We had to put up a gate and
a fence,
something that looked a little bit better than just this farm wire fence. So we put in a gate, and I'll show you one of our failed attempts at something. If you're on social media, you'll see all kinds of garden hacks, and it was the strawberry gutter hack. I can't really tell you how good it worked. The strawberry seeds.
It did not work for us at all.
2 years later, we still have partial setup of these. I'm really thinking that we're probably going to put
Shadow,
in these. Let them just creep over. It'll just be for looks. And of course, anytime we have flowers, it's good for the pollinators. So we did install a water system out here. We tried many different things. We tried running water hoses from the house. that works, but who wants water hoses
It's a pain.
right across their yard all the time? So then about probably 150 feet that way, we do have a small creek, and we put in a pump with a 1-inch line. We brought it up here, and we had no electricity down there, so I had to go all the way down there and crank the pump. And you know, we would try to get creative, like how much gasoline do we need to leave in the pump so that it'll run just enough, and then run it out, and that's how we'd cut the thing off. And that worked out great. Again, that was one of those things that worked great when it worked, but then when it didn't work, it was a nightmare. The creek flooded, pump went down the creek one day, and honestly, we were just done with that. So we have a well here on the property, and it's about 200 feet, I think, that way. And we just ran a water line over here, and basically we needed a water spigot anyway. So we put these freeze-free spigots in, and we wired in 2 zones of irrigation here. It's controlled by a controller inside our storage building. And now we don't have to worry about it. We got our yard back. We don't have to prime a pump. We prime it, we set the timer. It runs once a day during the growing season, and we never worry about it. And
Advantage landscaper husband.
Yes. So come on in, and we'll kind of give you a look around inside the garden. So we started growing peppers in this little planter box, and I had a client that was throwing this out like 3 years ago, and we brought it home, and we've always grown peppers in it. And at the time, this worked, but you can tell now this box would hold roughly 5 pepper plants.
Yeah, I think that's what we got last year.
We probably, if I had to guess, have around 70 pepper plants
Yeah,
now.
we're a
So
little
as you can
crazy.
imagine, we weren't able to continue using this for our main pepper box. What we did do was we bought 2 varieties of peppers.
Super hot ones, I think.
I'll probably butcher this name, but I believe this one's called an AJ Rico pepper. It's supposed to be a hot pepper, and I think that one is the same name. They're supposed to be very hot, and
I accidentally
we,
picked up a Cajun bell pepper,
a Cajun bell
so I
pepper.
put it up here.
So we'll fool around with
Yeah.
these, see if anybody likes them. If they do, we'll grow more of them.
Yeah.
Down this aisle, we have our squash through here. We don't do a whole lot of squash. It's not a huge seller. You either like it or you don't. So we didn't do a lot of squash through here this year.
This is from seeds, y'all.
Seed.
They have done beautifully.
These have been in the ground maybe 4 weeks max.
Yeah, quite a while actually. We planted down here first.
Yeah, and of course we started them from seeds. They're like in little 4-inch containers when we brought it in. So what we have through here is squash and zucchini.
Yeah, look at the zucchini though. It's doing beautiful.
So if you do any gardening, you know that zucchini is that one thing that you grow every year. And you have the mystery zucchini that you have picked everything, and then the next day you come out there and there's like a 4-foot one this
Yes.
big, and you're like, well, where did that come from?
Always happens.
So every year we're like, do we even do any zucchini this year? Because let's face it, if you're a gardener, you're going to be tired of zucchini by the end of the season. But we do it every year because we're glutton for punishment. So all the way down is zucchini. And
These are 2 dahlias that I'm trying.
yeah, so we're mixing
Again,
some more
mixing in some
pollinator
pollinators.
friendly stuff. So this row right here is jalapenos
Again, from seeds.
from seed.
Hard
And,
to do peppers from seeds. We're learning.
Again, everything is
Drip.
drip irrigated, and we do have something eating on these. We've not identified quite yet. You can see some of the leaves are ate on. Being that we don't use any pesticides or chemicals on our produce, we always have to come up with a solution. So we have found a few organic treatments that we use, and we have pretty good luck with those. I'm not going to say they're going to work as good as like if you were to go buy 7 Dust, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's a good compromise for us because we look at it as, if we lose a plant or something is a little bit slower working, we're still not putting a bunch of chemicals on our
Right.
food. So
We like the Captain Jack's dead bug.
Captain Jack, something's got on these.
It's very good. Yeah, I got to get down here and spray these. But I have some. Look at those beautiful Zucchini. Okay. This one's got a really big one on it. So.
We did do a cantaloupe plant. It's for our own consumption. We've actually grown some pretty good cantaloupes. The problem is at one point we did a lot of cantaloupes and we would just have nothing but problems. They would split, the deer would get them.
Too wet.
And
too much moisture.
Wet. So we've just kind of backed off planting like mass production of cantaloupes until we can figure out a better solution. We may do some of those up there next year, but we just kind of ran out of room. So now this is kind of heartbreaking over here. These are our carrots. And
first time?
We chose this particular garden down here. Does really well for planting more of like spring and fall crops.
Cool weather.
Plant them in the let them grow through the summer. And the reason why it works so well in here is this garden gets great sun from like 7 in the morning to somewhere between like 2,
1 and 2, yeah,
depending on the time of the year. Between like 1 and 3 is when you'll get sun down here. So what happens is that really hot part of the day, this garden is completely shaded, but we get our 6 or 7 hours of sunlight to keep everything growing. So our carrots took off. Now what's funny is these things have like a really bad haircut right now because we have a really greedy horse that will literally put himself in harm's way to get something to eat. And so he actually pulled quite a few of them out of the ground. The only advantage to that was we got to see how close these things were to being ready, and they're close. So we had to go back to that barbed wire again this week and run a strand up here. It was put up very quickly to keep them out of it. So, and then of course over here, these are our wildflowers. We're not really sure what's beat them up. We do know they're kind of reaching for that afternoon sun.
They're leaning towards the sun.
But, we do still think something got into them because they're like matted down. It could be
great for our pollinators.
Who knows what it could be. And then this over here is another
well, these are growing nice and straight because I ended up putting this mesh wire down to keep the cats out because they kept digging at the seeds, and it's actually done a great job of helping everything to grow up like more straight.
Yeah.
So, accidental helper.
These were old timbers that we had pulled off a job, and they were either going to go into a dumpster or they were going to be reused here, and we decided to reuse them. This is actually where we had our green bean arch, was from bed to bed, and it just didn't work out.
It was so thick you couldn't even see the green beans.
So
it's pretty.
We've got some open space here where we had things planted last year. We've got more peppers running all the way up through here. I would say there's probably another 20 or 25.
Those are bell.
Yeah, all bell peppers through here.
And then our okra.
We've got our okra
on this row here.
And what we're doing with these empty spaces is if you have a garden, you're always eager to get stuff started planting as early as you possibly can. And that's what we do. Once the weather is right, we plant. And then, everything runs its course. So no matter how good you treat it, no matter how much pruning you do on it, how much water, things get big and it really just runs its course. So what we're doing this year is we're starting a second late crop, and that crop will run longer. So a lot of things, like in our okra produces even way beyond the first frost, believe it or not. We'll have a frost, we're still putting out okra. But like our tomatoes and our peppers, they just seem to get to a point, no matter what we do to them, they just become leggy and hard, and we don't get good produce off of them. So this year what we're going to do is all this open space is just start a late crop.
Yeah, so maybe a second row of okra, in fact.
We'll probably do a second row of okra. We'll do more tomatoes up there.
I use it a lot for pickling too.
And over here, this is just
experiment.
Kind of experimenting place. So we'll call this the laboratory over here. So we did some salad mixes for the very first time. So this was, what was this? Tell us what was this?
Arugula.
That's right. And
we're learning.
We had never messed with any of like the microgreens, and it didn't turn out quite the way we wanted it to. We let it bolt, and once that happens, it's not really any good. Radishes were doing pretty good. We actually started some radishes at another location that we grow corn at, and for whatever reason they did great there, but they did so here.
Maybe the shade.
Maybe the shade, and then of course over here
I did onions this year. I'm excited, and I got some pretty nice looking bulbs coming up, so I'm excited. Once these start to lean over, that is usually a sign that the onions are ready to pick. So I'll have to wait for these guys to start sort of laying over the tops, the green tops, and then the bulbs will literally be like coming out of the ground. So yeah, I'm just waiting. It's a waiting game with like a lot of your root vegetables like carrots and potatoes and onions. You just kind of have to wait for the tops to lay over, and supposedly you're good to go.
So all this stuff over here is just stuff we're trying. Obviously, if this stuff does well, obviously we don't want to spend the time and the money and the resources to plant a lot of stuff for the first time. So this is like
trial and error.
And I said it's like our little laboratory, but it kind of is. It's where we test things. Is this going to work here? Is it work great here? Is it work great there? And then we find out where it does well at, or if it does well at all. If it doesn't, we won't grow it anymore. Kind of like you know, we used to plant a lot of cantaloupes and watermelons. Because, you know, they wouldn't do well. So, but hopefully the microgreens work out and we can fill a large portion of this bed up. So here's another thing that's just for us was we had an empty pot here.
Strawberries.
And we ran the strawberries up here. We do have one that's coming in. So
Pretty little red baby.
no more gutters. Just
hopefully the birds don't get it.
So. And again, this one has all drip. We put some shut-off valves on this. We had some things that needed daily watering, some things that didn't need daily watering, and they were on the same zone, so we can turn it off, manage it. That's probably about the most work we have to do to the drip. Everything else is automated. And then, of course, we do use the fabric.
Life changing.
Yeah, we get about 2, maybe 3 seasons out of this before we have to replace it. This up here may not do quite as well because it's out in the full sun, so it might just get like 2 seasons out of it. But this just gives us time to focus on other things besides weeding.
Yes.
You know, when you have fertile soil, and you know, we use a lot of compost, so we're getting weed seeds in there from that. And you know, we just needed something that would guarantee that we weren't out here all the time, just doing nothing but weeding. So I'm gonna show you one more thing, and then we're gonna let you go. All right, so this was something that we started last year. We love blueberries. It's probably like the #1 fruit that we like to eat is blueberries. And, you know, they can be expensive, obviously. It's not like a bag of apples. You know, if you buy blueberries in the grocery store, you know they're expensive. Not to mention you never know what you're getting through the grocery store.
That's right.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We put 8 bushes in last year. We had an idea of putting in this entire hill in blueberries so that maybe we could sell a few. Honestly, what kept us from doing that is we may not be in this location forever.
That's right.
So whenever we end up at our next farm, maybe we'll put 100 blueberry bushes in at a time. This will just be for us. We'll share if we like you.
I'm gonna come in,
So
zoom in. You can see, got some coming for sure. This one up here is loaded. Just waiting on them to ripen.
we actually bought these from a local tree farm who deals with another local grower, and they bring in fruit trees and, you know, fruit
That one's
bushes
not doing as great.
During the spring. So again, try to use local farmers and growers as much as we possibly can.
And a lot of the seeds we ordered this year were from a Georgia seed company. So
this was a little box that I built Amanda last year, and you know, this was this thing gets used for multi-purposes, honestly. So we have our lavender in there. This thing is usually loaded. This is like our #1 place where we have bees. This thing was full of bees this afternoon.
Big pollinator pool.
Then of course we have a little bit more lavender. We have some creeping Jenny.
Oh, that's rosemary.
I'm sorry, rosemary. And we have cilantro over here that we've let get a little bit leggy.
I gotta cut it.
And then our dill, and a few more of her black-eyed Susans, and then my little nephew, who is like a future farmer. we have a big, basically just a big trash pile from all the stuff that our landscape company digs up over the years, and we dump it. So it's at our office in Lawrenceville, and you know, for gosh, 20 something years, the guys would come in the afternoon and they would dump out old plants, old dirt. So every spring we get to look and see, you know, what pops up. So it's like a plant Christmas morning basically every spring. And if I can keep my brother off of the pile with his loader, because he constantly pushes it up, we can usually find some pretty cool things. And this week we had found these elephant ears and a couple of hostas. And my nephew, you have to give him a little bit of slack. He's 5 years old, so he's still learning to get root. So these are suffering just a little bit. He likes to yank on them a little, but
we love to recycle.
we like to recycle plants. You'd be surprised how much of the stuff in this yard is recycled. But that's it. So we
A beautiful dill.
just wanted to kind of show the state of our garden, you know, so far. So maybe in a couple more weeks we will start having a lot of stuff growing, and we can, you know, do another video and show you guys what we have. And then maybe I can do a video on how we prune our tomatoes and we keep our vines attached to everything, and then a harvesting, because these are things that need to be done right to promote new growth on your plants and not harm the plants. So
That's right.
hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we were able to share a little bit of our garden with you. Until next time, thanks.